Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this very interesting little watch right here. This is the Omega Speedmaster Professional, the Moonwatch. First off, I want to thank so much my buddy Jim for sending this guy along. He loaned this to me from his personal collection to use and wear like my own for a little while, and I appreciate that so much, Jim. That really does mean the world and makes this review possible. Next thing, let's do a quick size comparison real quick. First off, this is against the my personal fan. I'm throwing things, whatever. My personal favorite everyday carry watch. This little guy is the Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean. Over here is the Omega Seamaster Aquaterra. It's a whole bunch of Omega going on there. Right here we have the Casio F91W. Right here, the Casio F108. Another watch with a chronograph built in. And this little guy right here is a Citizen BM8180. Another very interesting little watch. So anyways, there's your size comparison. Let's get some formal measurements here. We'll do everything in millimeters because that's how things are done in the watch world. Right here from crown to the other side, we see that this guy comes in right around 43 millimeters. The actual bezel itself, from one end of the tachymeter to the other, is about 40, and the face itself comes in around 33 or so. The total distance from the top lug to the bottom is about 45, and the lug width on this guy is 20 millimeters. So there's that. Then next thing, this is the Moonwatch. That's what it's known for. That's what it's hyped for. That's what it's marketed for. This is a watch that was worn by Buzz Aldrin, among others, on the moon. It was involved in all 6 of the Apollo missions. And this is the Speedmaster Professional. This is kind of the original version here of the Moonwatch. This is the kind of canonical Moonwatch you got going on here. And so it doesn't get any more Moonwatchy than this particular Moonwatch. And that's basically Omega's marketing for this guy. He's yelling Moonwatch over and over again, so I'm just mirroring them there. But anyways, so this is the original Moonwatch. Let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this particular little Moonwatch here. Okay, so first off, on the good side, this is a hand-wound movement. That itself is maybe good, maybe not. But this does not have a screw-down crown, and that makes this very easy to wind. You don't have to do anything to wind it. All you need to do is twist. You just twist the crown in its normal position, and you can hear... There you go, it winds. And in fact, it winds, and it stops when it is fully wound. So at that point, it will no longer wind any further, and you can stop winding. That makes it nice and easy. You know, I found myself just, sitting at the bus stop some mornings, like, okay, I should wind the watch. And so you do, and then you go until you stop, and that gives you 48 more hours worth of power reserve. And look, 48 hours is a just fine sort of power reserve in this case because... you're going to think about winding this watch, and you're going to have a moment to do it at some time every 48 hours. That's not so hard. And so getting this guy from, dead flat to fully wound is like 30 seconds or something like that worth of wounding. Freaking okay. That turned out to actually not be as big of a hassle as I thought it was going to be. So that's good. Next thing, I like the bracelet on this guy very much. Not only is it a nice flexible sort of bracelet, but it has relatively thin links. It has screw-down links. You can see here, these are just flathead screws to the side there, and it is very, very nice, and it has a very nice milled out Omega clasp that, just pops into place beautifully and then disengages very nicely with this. This is a great bracelet. Omega does great bracelets, and this is no exception. So I like this bracelet very much. It's very nice on the hand, very comfortable, etc. Not a whole lot of option for intermediate adjustment, really. Maybe there are half links that I don't have with this guy, but still, it's a good bracelet. No argument there. Next thing, this is a chronograph watch. What that means is, here, I'll reset it for a second. When you hit this top button, watch, second hand is going to start spinning. It's going to start moving around. And it's this central second hand, not this little guy. This is always showing as real seconds, but this is timing whatever it is that I want to be timing. And I can hit this button again to stop it. And then if I want to hit that button again, it'll start back up again, and so forth and so forth. And it will keep timing and keep timing and keep timing for up to 12 hours because the second hand will move around, and then this little guy down here, this registers 30-minute increments, which gives you actually a very nice, it's very easy to look down at a glance and read how much time has elapsed within that 30 minutes, and then you can look down here and see the hours. Look, it's a great chronograph. It works very nicely. It's very easy to read, and a chronograph can actually be a useful complication, 100%. I've used it in the time I've been been wearing this guy to time talks and meetings, things like that. To time, okay, your pizza's going to be here in 30 minutes. All right, turn on the chrono. That way I can look down and at a glance, hey, I'm almost 5 minutes away from pizza. As if that were a real number. But nonetheless, that's nice. And it is more precise than, for instance, using a diver's bezel, which is what I usually do to time things. Just, okay, right now we're starting here, and then, whenever the diver's bezel, etc. It's more precise than that. And you also get along the outside here a tachymeter, which basically means that if you start the chronograph running and then wait for something to happen. So let's say you're driving down the highway. Here, we'll reset. You start this running, and you're driving. You start it running when you hit a mile marker, for instance, and then you stop it again when you hit the next mile marker. So if I had hit a mile marker when I started it, and then here comes another one, stop. Well, it looks like I'm going around 280 miles an hour. That's a little fast. Probably should slow it down. But, hey, whatever. It gives you that option. So this is timed for how many times something happens in a given hour, which is absolutely fine. So the chronograph is actually a useful thing, and it was nice on a couple of occasions to have around on the watch, and this is a nice one given how readable it is and whatnot. Next thing, the details are here. I mean, it's an Omega, and Omega makes very nice watches with very nice details, but a couple of them jumped out at me. One thing I don't know that I'm going to be able to capture here, but hopefully you'll be able to see it, is that right there on the crystal there, hovering right above that, yeah, you can see a little tiny bit. I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit and maybe make it clearer. But right there, above the center area, there is a little Omega that is engraved into the Hesa light crystal. I don't know, there it is. Yeah, I don't know if it's on the outside or the inside, but whatever it is, it looks kind of nice. And it was a little, I saw that, I was like, wait, hey, cool, okay, nice. It has very nice alternations between polished and brushed on the case, which is good. Looks very nice. The little hippocampus in the middle here is very nice. Looks very good. The finishing on the whole is pretty nice. The bracelet has these nice little polished stripes down the center there, which I find to be a really nice compromise between having polished end links, polished mid links here, where this entire surface is polished, and being completely brushed, like for instance on my Planet Ocean here. So I think that's a very nice little detail. The typography on this dial is incredible. I mean, the 70s were a great time for typography, and indeed here it is the case as well. I mean, the Speedmaster font, the Omega looks great. The individual number fonts is just spectacular. I mean, the dial layout is really, really nice, and so I appreciate that very much. And in fact, that brings me to the next point, which is that this watch is beautiful. It is absolutely a gorgeous watch, 100%. I like looking down at this and seeing this. It is handsome, it is understated, it's not flashy, it's not quite as, this is a little flashy, let's be real, more than a little. This guy is a lot more understated, a lot more nerdy, and so I appreciate that very much. And so it's just a beautiful thing, and that is sort of the killer feature for this watch over a lot of chronographs. There are a lot of chronos out there that aren't that attractive. This one absolutely is. That's good. But the thing is, if you don't find this particular one attractive, another killer feature is that there are a billion variants about this. There are very few absolute truths in the world. The rent will go up, for instance, and the sun will rise tomorrow, barring some strange catastrophe, and next year Omega will release 500 new Speedmaster variants. That's just what they do. They are a company that comes up with new ways to make the Omega Speedmaster. And so if you don't like the look of this guy, you can find a million other options, both with this kind of construction as well as with newer features, etc. There are a million Speedmasters. So if you're looking at this thinking, that's a little plain, you can find something better. So they will be dropping these over and over again, so it's really just a question of how long you're willing to wait. So that's good. Next thing, and this one actually caught me off guard, is that the Loom on this watch is actually incredible. Hold on, let me grab my flashlight real quick. But the thing is, I am a big snob for Loom in a pocket watch, meaning luminous compound. So I'm going to charge it off camera here with a flashlight, and then just show you just how brightly this Loom goes. I mean, if we look at this guy, it is just beautifully, beautifully loomed. You can see here that the hour hand, the minute hand, and then every one of the indices are nicely loomed, and the Loom will last all night long. I, put this on my wrist, I charge it, then, 5 a.m., I wake up, I roll over, I can see the Loom just beautifully glowing there. And so that was a very pleasant surprise. And it does look great. And so the Loom on this is absolutely excellent, killer. And then finally, that brings us, and, well, kind of suggests one of the other things that I like most about this watch, is that it is very legible. Very often, chronograph watches are very busy. There's a lot going on the dial. There are colors and, hands everywhere. This guy, I gotta say, you look down at this guy, and especially when you know that your chrono hand is at 12 o'clock, it is very easy to tell what time it is. You got the short hand, the long hand, and everything else kind of blends into the background. You can see the chrono if you want to. You can look at all those sub-dials, but by and large, they just don't matter. And so this is a chrono that I can look down at and read just as readily as I can a watch that's just a three-hander. It's just not a concern, and so I love that very much. And to me, that is one of the best parts of this, is that it is a chrono, but it is still very legible. So that is the good, is that it is super legible. The Loom is just incredible. It is just a beautiful watch with a billion variants, if you don't find this one beautiful. It's got very nice details with typography and whatnot. Chronos can be a very useful complication in everyday life. It has a very nice bracelet, and it is actually surprisingly easy to hand wind this guy, which I appreciate very much. Let's talk about what's great here. To me, what is absolutely great about this watch is the story. This is the Moonwatch. This watch, well, at least one of them like them, was present on all 6 Apollo missions. The Buzz Aldrin, the second guy on the moon, was wearing one of these guys when he got out the module. That's really cool. I mean, seriously, I am a space geek. I completely admit that every day of the week. I love manned spaceflight. That's the coolest thing freaking ever. I watch every SpaceX launch that I can, and every time I'm cheering for the landing. Look, I love space, and so that is a neat little story here. And the fact that this, a watch very much like this one, was on the moon is spectacular. Mind you, Omega won't let you forget about it. Oh, God. And they have many, many Swiss people who are constantly pushing that marketing thread to try and make more people remember that this was on the moon. But look, even as it is, that's a really neat sort of thing. And the fact that this is a pretty faithful, the Speedmaster Professional, is a pretty faithful modern reproduction of that, complete with things like the Hesa crystal, complete with, even the movement is relatively similar with just a couple of tweaks in there. This is as close to something worn on the moon as any given jackass is going to be able to purchase. And that is really cool. I will fully admit that. And so to me, the greatest part of this watch, by a mile, is this story. Let's talk about what's bad. Okay, so on the bad side, first off, unfortunately, if you take a look up at 12 o'clock here, there is something that you will never be able to unsee. In fact, these little Loom pips coupled with the index there, well, let's just put it this way. I think Omega got a little bit cocky when labeling the 12 o'clock point. Don't get me wrong, it's a great thing to have 12 o'clock very easily visible even at night with Loom, but yeah, you can't unsee that. And so, although it makes me laugh personally, that might be a bad thing for some people. Next thing, enjoy, Internet. Next thing, the box on this guy is huge. It's ludicrously large. It is ridiculous. I specifically asked that he not send that along, but I've seen them in stores, and it's just like, come on, man. The watch is this freaking big. Why are you sending me something? That's something that I'm really tired of watchmakers doing. Sending a great box is excellent, but send a box that's proportionate. You don't need a box that you can keep a portion when it's only just going to be freaking, leather and cardboard in there. So, no, bad. Next thing, it kind of bugs me a little bit that if we look at the watch here with the Loom lit up, the loomed hand is the chrono second hand. You can see that's moving here, but the second hand for the actual watch itself is not moving. So if you are in the dark, for instance, you cannot tell whether this watch is running unless you start the chronograph. I can't think of that many situations in which I'd need to know only the seconds of a chronograph in the middle of the night with the inability to read, but I can definitely imagine wanting to see the second hand moving. So that bugged me a little bit. I mean, it doesn't make all that much sense to loom the chronograph hand really at all, especially if you're leaving the other one blank. It's a little detail. Next thing, and we're getting into more substantial issues here. This text on the back drives me a little bit crazy. It just comes across as like, okay, Omega, we get it. Seriously, shut up already. We know it's a Moonwatch. That's the cool thing. That's why we bought it. I mean, at this point, I am cheering for the return of manned lunar spaceflight, just wearing something else so that Omega will shut the heck up for a little while. We get it, Omega. And unfortunately, that whole Moonwatch thing is of limited coolness to people who are not like me, who are not giant space nerds. I told this story to the fiancé and showed her that And she just kind of looked at me like, okay, I'm not seeing it. And unfortunately, I suspect that many people in the general public will share that opinion. So it's really cool to you and me, potentially, but oh man, Omega, we got it. We're good. I would have preferred they put something like, oh, I don't know, water resistance or other useful information. Next thing is that, speaking of the hype that they're giving it, this watch is incredibly overhyped. It is incredibly hyped just in general. I mean, seriously, if you go on any watch forum, the Speedmaster is the only recommendation in this price range. People will say, you know, oh, I'm looking for a chrono, and people are already shouting Speedmaster. It's like, dude, okay, get the Speedmaster's 12 o'clock indicator out of your mouth and listen to the question. People can ask for any watch, and there will be people recommending this. It's a good watch, 100%, but we need to stop hyping it up so damn much and think realistically about what's going on here. So that hype drives me a little bit crazy, and it makes this watch, which is very compelling, a little bit less so because everybody and their freaking mother is, hyping it. Like, guys, come on. Pick some diversity here. But anyways, moving on. That's just a rant. Next thing, and getting into more really substantial issues, this movement, although it was born on the moon, is starting to show its age a little bit. This is a hand-wound movement, which means that unlike a lot of other modern mechanical watches that have a weight in the back here that will automatically wind the watch as you're wearing it. Come on, wait, move. There we go. This guy does not. You will need to hand wind this guy. And even if you put in a watch winder, it's not going to do anything because the watch doesn't wind itself. And so that's a little bit frustrating. This is a non-hacking movement. If I pull the... hold on, I need to wait for the second hand to get out of there. So I'll move on to the lack of anti-magnetism. Unlike a lot of Omega's modern movements, this is not anti-magnetic. Magnetic fields can affect this guy quite strongly. And so that's something to keep in mind. And finally, there we go. If I pull the crown out here to the one crown out position, which allows me to adjust the hour and the minute, you can see here that the second hand keeps moving. If you move the minute hand backwards, you can see that it slows the second hand down a little bit. But honestly, that's not something that impresses me very much. I don't tend to like I prefer a hacking movement, which allows you to set the seconds pretty precisely. And the fact that that's not present on here was pretty annoying to me. Not something I'm a huge fan of. And so all three of those things, the fact that it's hand-wound, that it's non-hacking, and that there's no anti-magnetism, mean that this movement is maybe a little bit behind the times. Speaking of behind the times, this is using the Hesa Light plastic crystal. What this is, it's a plastic crystal. It will not shatter, which is its big deal. You can do a lot to this crystal, and it will not shatter, but it will scratch very easily. This is plastic. I mean, flat out, it is a polymer. It's a good polymer, but this will take scratches much more readily than sapphire or even mineral crystals. You can generally polish them out using a compound like Polywatch, but the thing is, that's something you're gonna have to keep in mind. This will scratch way more easily than any other watch in your collection as a result of that. Another thing that's a little bit odd is that this has 5 atmospheres of water resistance, 50 meters. This may sound like a lot, but practically speaking, you want to have a lot more water resistance than you need. And so what this means is that this isn't really a watch you can trust around water. Chances are you can wash your hands with it, absolutely no problem, and you can probably even get tossed in the pool and be okay. But this is a watch that is very much not meant for water. It's not a watch you can swim with reliably, and it's something where that is something you have to think about. And that's not the case on a lot of modern watches. And so that was a bit of a disappointment. It's probably because the crown isn't screw down, and I can totally understand why it's not, given the fact that you got to wind this, but still, a little disappointing. Next thing that bothered me is that this is a watch without a date function. You can see a lot of my watches give me the date. This guy does not, and so I very often found myself in the course of my daily life when I was wearing this guy looking down at my wrist, trying to find out the date, and then realizing, oh, well, I don't know. And so you pull out your phone, you live, you learn, but the thing is, that was a little frustrating, and I did miss it 100%. Next thing, and this is getting to be a serious oversight, Omega has developed a beautiful bracelet adjustment system. I'll show it off here in the Planet Ocean. If you press this little thing down, it allows the bracelet to slide further in or out. I'll do it from the top here. And what this does is it gives you up to a little bit more than a full length worth of expansion for free without any tools whatsoever. This guy does not have that system. Even though Omega has it and has applied it to other watches in the same price range, they decided not to put it here. Instead, all you have is this system here where you can use a spring bar tool and push this down now. Push this guy down in there and then move it out a little bit. It works. It gives you a little bit of extra, but that's not something you're going to be able to do just on a regular basis if your wrist swells. And getting the watch to fit you perfectly is not something that this is going to make easy. And that's something that I really miss a lot. And given that Omega has a great system for it, it bothers me a little bit that they chose not to use it in this watch, which is also really pricey. Next thing is more general, but is a serious issue here to think about, is that a chronograph, the ability to measure time, adds a complexity. There's a reason that watchmakers call it a complication. Every time you do that, you add a bunch more pieces in there. You add a whole bunch more works just to make the chronograph happen. This means more pieces to wear. It means it's going to cost more to service later on down the road. When you have your mechanical watch serviced, it's going to cost more. And it's going to cost a bunch more to make the watch to start with. And the simple fact is that for a lot of people, a diver's bezel has enough accuracy for most daily timing tasks, and chances are that your cell phone has a stopwatch on there too. And so if you're buying a watch that you mostly use to look down at your wrist and tell the time, buying a chronograph to tell the time is like buying a scientific computing workstation for checking Facebook. I mean, you're getting a lot of what you don't need, and you're paying a serious price. So absolutely, a chronograph is horologically interesting, but you should really think carefully, especially given the amount of hype around this watch particularly, when people say, oh, you want a watch? Get an Omega Speedmaster. If you don't need the chrono, you shouldn't pay for the chrono. Handsome watch, but that's a lot of freaking money. Because oftentimes a three-hand watch will suit your needs just fine. So to me at least, that all is the bad, is that adding a chrono adds a lot of complexity, and for a lot of people, it's not necessarily going to make much sense. It has no toolless quick adjust, no date. It's only 5 atmospheres water resistant, has a light crystal, scratches pretty easily. It's got an old movement with hand wind, no hacking, no anti-magnetic. The Moonwatch text on the back is driving me a little nuts here. It's hyped like crazy on the internet. It's got a Loom chrono second hand. It's a ludicrously large block, and you will never, ever unsee the, 12 o'clock symbol there. So let's go ahead and talk about the ugly here. On the ugly front, first off, this watch is not rated, it's not a chronometer rated watch. What that means is that Omega did not take the time to actually regulate the watch to get it very accurate. And unfortunately, that shows. This particular watch here is running about 6 seconds per day fast. It's been my experience and also the experience of the owner as a time grapher. So over the time I've had it, every day I wear this watch, it gains 6 seconds. And the thing is, a watch that is 6 seconds a day fast is kind of a crappy watch. This thing has exactly one job, which is to tell me the time accurately. And it's not doing that, because by the end of a month, you're 3 minutes fast, and that's serious time. And so I don't like that really at all. I can hear the apologists, though, jumping into the thread right now. But Nick, you can take it to a watchmaking and have it regulated, and then it'll be dead on accurate. But the thing is, that's Omega's freaking job. They made this watch. They're selling this watch for huge amounts of money, and they don't bother to regulate it first? Come on, no. This is Omega being lazy and not giving a crap. And considering that the Moonwatch is their product that they advertise most heavily all the time, they cannot afford to be sending these out the door in a condition that they're not performing well. That kind of accuracy, in my opinion, is not acceptable for $1,000, let alone for what they're asking. And that actually brings us to the next issue, which is that this is a very expensive watch. The retail price on this watch is $5,250. Your local authorized distributor, not an Omega boutique, but an authorized distributor, can probably do better for you. Probably much better. But still, that is a bunch of freaking money. And I get that mechanical chronographs are complicated, but whoa, is that pricey. And it's way above some comparable chronographs, sometimes with better accuracy from other companies. And that kind of the salt is rubbed in the wound by the last bit of ugly, which is that Omegas unfortunately lose a ton of value when you buy them. What I mean by that is that this is $5,250 at retail. But if you look on the secondary market, you look on internet forums and things like that, these guys sell for about $3,000, which means that if you buy this at full retail price, you go to an Omega boutique, you deal with the snooty people there, and you walk out the door, you will pay $2,000 just for the privilege of being the guy to wear this out the door, for being the first owner buying from full retail. That is a huge amount of money. That kind of a $2,000 loss, which is present, unfortunately, kind of throughout Omega's lineup here, is Omega's, I mean, that's the universe's way of saying that Omega's pricing is just too damn high, and that they really need to be giving their 80s more flex on pricing or just lowering the prices altogether. Because having these unrealistic prices encourage a flourishing gray market, which in turn really hurts the authorized distributor it is, it's just really ugly. So Omega needs to drop the pretense and drop the price a little bit, especially if they're not going to regulate the damn thing. So to me at least, that is absolutely deeply ugly. The fact that when you buy this guy at retail, you will lose a lot of money instantly just because of the overpricing there, that the price is really super high, and that even with this super high price, they're not willing to put in the effort to get it accurate. That bugs me hugely and is deeply, deeply ugly. But anyways, that's the ugly. Let's go into your final conclusion here. Look, final conclusion. There is one really good reason to buy this watch, and that is the story. If you want to own the Moonwatch because it is the Moonwatch, then you should buy this watch. It is a fine watch. It will work absolutely fine for your everyday life, particularly if you need a chronograph. It'll look great on your wrist. You will enjoy the heck out of it, and you will be in the great company of the many, many people who absolutely love this freaking watch because it is really, really solid. There is a lot of good here. But the thing is, this is not going to be a great choice for the people for whom the moon thing is not a huge driving factor. If the story, if the idea, if the history doesn't do it for you, then I think that the hype is doing this watch a little bit of a disservice. This is not the one and only watch solution that the internet makes it out to be. It is not the second coming of watches. It is not everything that it's hyped up to be. Relative to a lot of other watches, honestly, I think it's showing its age a little bit. It's no magnetic resistance. It's a plastic freaking crystal, non-hacking movement. And it's got other issues that make it a little less well-suited for daily wear. I mean, it's hand-wound, there's no date, there's poor water resistance, no quick adjust, a scratchy crystal, and just awful accuracy. And Omega, you can do better than that. And then to top it all off, it's really, really expensive, and there are lots of other options out there. I mean, Omega has a ton of different options in their Speedmaster lineup. This guy, the Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch, is one of many, many Speedmasters. And so if you're looking for a specific set of features, chances are you can find a watch that looks like this and has that. The Speedmaster Racing is another really excellent choice, a little bit smaller with some modern features that are greater. The Speedmaster Moonwatch Chronograph, which adds in more waterproofing, a date, sapphire, crystal, coaxial movement, although it is really much more expensive and it's thicker than an asphalt milkshake. It's another really solid choice if you want to look at something that's looks like this, but doesn't have some of those downsides. And even if you're willing to go elsewhere, there are great choices here. Citizen Boulevard make incredible quartz chronographs at really good, palatable prices. The Tudor Black Bay chronograph is about the same price as this guy, but it's got a whole bunch of joy in there too. And the Boulevard Moonwatch, I mean, seriously, that is something you should be considering if you're looking at this guy, because it has a similar space heritage. It was also worn on the moon, but it's only 5% of the price, and it's way, way more accurate. And so that's something else you should consider. I got a full review of that guy. Check it out there. And if you don't need the chronograph on a regular basis, then you're probably better off doing a three-hand sort of watch where you can get a lot more bang for your buck, and you know, you're a little less limited there. So I guess final conclusion, I think the Moonwatch is a good watch, and I think it has a great story. And I think that story is the biggest thing that this thing's got going for it, and the hype that story has built up. And so if you need a chronograph watch, this is a really solid choice, particularly a legible chronograph. But I think for most people, the Moonwatch is just going to be a lot of money with a couple of missing features, and that once that story eventually wears off, if that's not the most driving force for you, I just don't know that you're going to remain over the moon with this particular little guy. Hope this has been interesting to you, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day, and that you don't think I'm a lunatic for making this call. Bye now.